Hey guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with the rest of my March wrap-up. I did the part 1 a couple weeks ago, so I'll link that down below, and then I have the other 20 books I've read for the second half of March. I read 33 books, so my first wrap-up has 13 books, and this one will have 20. I have a lot to get to. If I have a reading vlog for it, I will link it down below for any of the books that I've read. I also want to show you I'm wearing my amazing Penelope Eloise shirt from Hello Lovely. This is my absolute favorite. They're so cute. They're my friendship goals. I love Penelope and Eloise so much from the show, from Bridgerton, and so I will always link Hello Lovely down below. I just want to show it off though, because you can't really see it unless I'm like far up, but I love it, and I'm wearing this outfit for the next 2 videos I film because I'm bulk filming today, because that's what I do with a full-time job. So I will go ahead and get to the 20 books that I read and let you know my thoughts. So the first book I read was Slave to Sensation by Nalini Singh. I have this copy somewhere, but it is somewhere in my triple stacked section of paranormal paperbacks over there. So this one I listened to on audio. It's the first book in the Side Changeling series, and it was really interesting. So our heroine is a person, I don't know how to describe these things in these intricate worlds. So in this world, there's different kinds of shifters. So our hero is a shifter, and she is a Psy, and they have these interesting like mind abilities, but they don't feel emotion, and so they like have babies, but they're like picked out, and I don't even know why they would have children then, I don't know, but she actually can feel emotion, which is not normal, and she has to hide it about herself, but she can like communicate in your minds, and there's like different mind things happening, and so she has to work with the shifters for something, and there is actually a bunch of people from the shifters that are going missing and being killed, and they think it's one of the Psy, and she ends up being really into this one guy, and he is intrigued by her because he's really put off by the Psy, but he can tell something's different about her, and it's their romance, and it was really good. I did give this a 4 out of 5 stars because I was still a little confused about the whole mind thing, and she had to learn a lot more about her own people and what they were hiding, and she's always been like terrified someone's gonna figure out about her secret and like kill her, and we had to figure out who was killing all these women, and I really enjoyed this. I'm excited to go in the second one. I really like the romance in here too, and there was parts of like things happening in dreams, which I really loved because she's a Psy, so she like does a lot of mind things, and like she thought she was dreaming, but like they were meeting in her dream, and I thought that was really cool. So I enjoyed this, 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Delaney's Desert Chic. I think it's pronounced Chic. And this one is by Brenda Jackson. It's a Harlequin. It's really old. It's for a list video that I'm doing, and I gave it 2 stars. Maybe 1. I think I might have given it 1 star. So I listened to an audiobook. Our heroine Delaney is going to this cabin. She just finished her like medical program, and so she wants to take a vacation, but there's this Chic staying there, and he's this like playboy Chic, and they end up really liking each other, and it was weird. Like it felt kind of insta-lovey, and like there was one scene where she was like sleeping, and he went to her and like did something sexual, and she was asleep, and then she thought she was dreaming, and so then she woke up and he had like run away, and she didn't even know it actually happened, and he never told her it happened, and I was like, that's creepy. Like it was just creepy. I didn't like this. It was just like not good, and I don't know why people like rave about this as like a classic Harlequin romance, because I wasn't into it. Then I read Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. This one I listened to on audiobook. The next few are going to be audiobooks, and this one was really good. Our heroine actually has HIV. She was born with HIV, and she has 2 dads. She was adopted. She deals a lot with what it means to want to date someone being HIV positive. She's at a new school. She's working with the musical, which I love musicals, and I love musical books, and they're working on Rent in this one, and so I really like that whole aspect about how into musicals she was in musical theater, and she wasn't performing in it. She was one of the like directors, which I thought was really cool, and it's a new school she's at though. She had to leave her old school because people were bullying her because they figured out about her HIV, and so she starts really liking this boy, and doesn't know when to tell him. She's like, when do I tell him I have HIV? He's gonna think I'm disgusting. I have to tell him though if we want to like go further in our relationship, and so I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Our heroine's also trying to come to terms with her sexuality because she thinks she's bisexual, but then her best friend, who is I think her best friend identifies as a lesbian, and she's like, well, you can't be bisexual if you've only liked celebrities. Like, that doesn't count, and like kind of invalidating her identity. And it's just very interesting conversations about that, and I really like this. It was great. There were a lot of great moments with her and her family, her and her friends. She has a great support group, and at the end it was just adorable. I really enjoyed this one. Then I listened to the audiobook of We Are Not Free by Tracy Chic. I had this one on reservation for like a month. It's hard to get a hold of through the library, and it finally came in, and this is about the Japanese internment camps during World War II, and it follows all these different teens who were taken, and it takes place in California, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. I didn't know a lot about what happened then. I knew that the internment camps existed, but they kind of like gloss over it in history class, if they even address it in history class, and so it was really interesting how they were all forcibly taken from their homes, live in basically like stables, like horse stables, and they still had school and like work in this community, but they were prisoners. And then the whole aspect of asking them to serve in the military and taking these different surveys of if they were loyal or not, and if you were loyal you had to answer certain questions like in a certain way, and I was a sobbing mess in this book. I was listening to the near the end on my way home from my parents' house, so it was just me and my dogs, and I got to a part I was not expecting and literally started sobbing in the car, and like my dogs were like, what is wrong with you? And it was very, very emotional. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It is really great. We get like 14 different narrators, and we get the different narrators in the audiobook, which is really fabulous, and I just love this. I think it would be fantastic to have high school or middle schoolers read, because it's really accessible, being from the perspective of teenagers and having just like short little snippets of each of their lives. They're all connected, like they're all at the same place and they all know each other, which I really liked. It was great. 5 out of 5 stars. I definitely recommend it. Then I read The Cost of Not Knowing by Brittany Morris. This is the second book, I think, by this author, and this says it came out in March, but I don't think it comes out until April. I think they must have pushed it back, because my ARC says it came out March 16th, which I don't think it did. This author wrote Slay, and this one has a male main character. He has a special ability where everything he touches, he can see its future, and it was good, but very anxiety inducing. This was a very serious book to read. So our hero, the whole premise is that he touches his brother and figures out that his brother's gonna die soon, and so the entire book is him like freaking out that his brother's gonna die like any second, anytime he takes his eyes off of him, and he didn't really get this power until his parents passed away in an accident, and so it's just him and his brother. I think they're living with their aunt, and it's really all about him becoming closer to his brother, because he's really closed off from his brother since the accident, and his brother hasn't literally left his room or the house since the accident. He has really bad anxiety about going outside now, and so it's them trying to like navigate his powers and him trying to save his brother, but every single vision he's had has come true, so it's all like his brother's gonna die, when is he gonna die? And so it's really hard to read a book where every single second he's flipping out that his brother's dead, like he's anxious the whole time. And I know some people haven't been able to finish this because you feel anxious the entire time you're reading it, so if you're already an anxious person, I would be wary going into this book, but I really enjoyed it. I do think that it was a little bit too much at some times, because literally every page would be like, where's Isaiah? Oh my gosh, he's dead, isn't he? And like it happened over and over and over again, where I thought it kind of got redundant at that point. And we also had like him constantly touching things and like having to like shut down his vision, because that's what he can do, but it happened like every single time, and I don't know if that was necessary. But this is another one I cried in. I was just a crying mess this month. I had cried in 3 books I read, and I never cry in books. 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo killed me, and so I did enjoy this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's a really great book. Just know it's very emotional and draining when you read this. Then I started my video where I read historical romance from each decade, so I'll link that vlog down below. But the first one I read was My Darling Duke by Stacey Reed. I absolutely love this one. I've talked about it a lot since reading it. Our hero is scarred. He was in a bad fire, and so he is really scarred, and he has a really hard time walking. He was told he would never walk again, but he has, and he really pushes himself beyond his physical capabilities. And our heroine needs a a husband. So she decides to announce her betrothal to a duke that no one sees, and it's our hero. He has been a recluse for like 10 years, and she announces their betrothal and then gets invited to all these parties. She's trying to set up a good match for her sister, and the hero ends up coming into society being like, who is this person that says she's my wife? And he kind of comes out of his shell, and they end up striking a bargain. He's like, well, you need to come to my estate in Scotland with me and spend some time with me if we want to keep up this ruse. And so she's like, okay. And they go to the countryside together, and there's a trope of only one bed. They're stuck in a cabin together at one point, and it's just absolutely fabulous. The ending is just absolutely heart-wrenching too, and he does have to grovel. I loved it so much. 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely my favorite of the month. I could not recommend this enough as a historical to read. On the other end of the spectrum, I read Once and Always by Judith McNaught, and I gave this 2 stars. It was the pick for the Historical Hellions live show for the book club I run with Samantha from Books with Samantha. I'll link the live show down below. My lovely friends from the Bridgerton read along joined me, and I was so excited to talk to them all again, but this one was not it. So our heroine, she has to go to London because both of her parents passed away, so she has to go with her sisters, and she is basically like pushed at her cousin because she is living with her uncle, and then her sister is taken by their grandmother, I think, and the grandmother doesn't want her, and there's like bad stuff that happened with her mother, like, and all that stuff, and so her uncle was actually in love with her mother, and they were cousins too. I think it's her uncle. I don't remember. They're all related somehow. He's her cousin that she's like pushed to be with, and she starts kind of falling for him, and he already, like, her uncle put in the paper that like they were already married, and so she has to learn like how to come out in society, and she's trying to find a husband. And then there is a very non-consensual scene in here that I absolutely did not like, and he was like, oh well, it happened, and there's absolutely zero groveling in here, and I didn't like it. And there's a lot of meddling in here of other people because she is in love with someone back home that she had like promised to marry, and so I didn't like it. I mean, there was stuff I did like I really loved all of the servants in their household. They were a lot of fun, but no. He is damaged. Like, he's supposed to be like the damaged bad boy because he can't trust women again because he was married and she was an awful wife and left, and like took his son, and then they both died, and so he's very damaged. But I don't like non-consent in my romances, so I gave this 2 stars. Then I read Devil's Bride by Stephanie Lawrence, and this one was a lot of fun. Our heroine is going to, I don't even remember where she was going. She is a governess, and she's going somewhere and like stumbles upon a dead body or like a dying body, and she's like freaking out, and she's like, what the heck? And so then Devil shows up, and it's his cousin who is dying, and so he ends up taking her and the dying body to this cabin, and they have to spend the night together in this cabin with this dead body, and they're gonna be ruined. And so he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna marry her. And so like the whole time he's adamant that they're gonna get married, but there's this whole mystery behind who killed his cousin and why his cousin was looking for him, because his cousin was looking for him, and figuring out like who is the evil person in here. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I will say the steamy scenes last a very long time in here. Like, they're excessively long, but it was a lot of fun. I really liked how he was adamant that he really liked her and wanted her for himself. I love a hero who goes after his woman like in a healthy way, and this one was just fun, and I really like the mystery. I do think the middle was a lot slower than I wanted it to be, and the ending kind of had the whole villain explaining himself for pages, and I wasn't a fan of that, but 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoy this. I cannot wait to read more in the series. I also, for that video, read Beguiling the Beauty by Sherry Thomas. This was my first Sherry Thomas, I think, and I really enjoyed it. Our heroine has been married twice, and both of her husbands have died, and our hero is an archaeologist, and he has like been madly in love with her since he first saw her, which made him angry, and he thinks that she's the reason her husband committed suicide, and he like says that during one of his talks, and she's like horrified that he would think that, and so she decides to go undercover as this baroness on this ship that's going from America to England, and she's like, I'm gonna get back at him and show him and seduce him, and they end up falling for each other on this trip, and then she kind of like disappears, and that's where the romance goes. I really enjoy this. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, 4.5 out of 5 stars. I liked how, well, I don't know how believable it was that he like literally never saw her face when they were together. She would like wear a veil, and then like they would just not have the lights on at night, and I was like, you really couldn't see anything about her. But I thought it was fun. I really love a good revenge turned romance plot, and that's what this was. And I really liked how he was an archaeologist. He was really into fossils, and so was she. She kind of wanted him for his fossils, which I thought was really funny. But this was a really really fun, unique romance. 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I listened to the audiobook. Would definitely recommend. Then I read Diary of an Accidental Wallflower by Casey McQuiston. This one I listened to on audio, and it was a girl who is basically being courted by this duke, but then she twists her ankle and she has to sit out and be a wallflower, and then her best friend like swoops in and gets the duke out from under her, and so she's devastated. But then there's this doctor there, and he is like, what's wrong with you? Like, I can tell you hurt your ankle. And she's trying to hide it, and she is instantly like, ooh, he's gorgeous. But she kind of talks down to him. He is a doctor. He's like lower class, but then they spend more time together, and she kind of like tries to get him to go away, but then her siblings become really connected to him, and I really like that aspect. But I do think this went on really long, and I feel like it was way too long, and I just wasn't like swooning over the romance, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't my favorite, especially after reading My Darling Duke. It just didn't live up to that. Then I read To Be Alone With You by Jodie Slaughter. This one is a novella, and it is a quarantine romance. Our heroine is 31, and when she was 21, she had asked the hero out and like said she really liked him, and he totally shut her down. 10 years later, she has to stay with him because I think her mom helped him like launch his career, and so he like agreed as a favor to let her stay in his guest house as like a vacation since she can't really afford one, and they end up being quarantined together, and it's a steamy good time, and I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. There was a little lull in there that I thought we were like building and building to this like spicy romance, and then it kind of like was stagnant because neither one of them would make a move, and I was like, come on. It was a novella, so I was like, let's get going, and so that made me give it 4 out of 5 stars. But this was really fun. I was wary going into a quarantine romance, but I enjoyed this. Then I finally read Mine Till Midnight by Lisa Kleypas, and this one I gave 5 out of 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook. I've heard, Tess on Instagram told me that the audiobook has changed some things from the original, so I'd be very interested to read this to see what was changed. But our heroine has to take care of her older brother, who's basically a drunk. He lost the love of his life when, I think it was when they lost their parents. I don't remember. They've lost their parents too, so they're all together, and the brother like took on the title, and he just gets drunk and like gets lost places. So she is going to taverns looking for him, and one tavern owner is Cam, and he kind of helps her, and they have super instant attraction. And then she decides like to keep her brother out of trouble. They're gonna go to their estate that's like literally crumbling to the ground because like every person that's had the title has not taken care of it until her brother got it, and so they're kind of trying to make it better, and they're there with their siblings. I forget how many siblings there are, but there might be 4 of them. I don't remember. But Cam ends up being there as well. He's like with the neighbors because he's helping them with his like business savviness, and they have a really great romance. There's a little bit of a love triangle because she was kind of thrown to the side by an old flame, and then he's back, and he was like left her to marry someone else, but then that didn't work out, and now he's like, hey, and like Cam gets jealous, and it's amazing. I love this. 5 out of 5 stars. We have that really fun setback. I'm obsessed with Ameripen and Win, and I cannot wait for their romance, so I'm gonna definitely try to read that book 2 this month. Then I read Accidentally Engaged by Farrah Heron, and this one was our Ravaged by Romance pick for our book club that I run with Lacey, and Lisa joined us, and I gave this one 2 stars. It was okay. Our heroine loves to bake. This guy ends up moving in across the hall, and it ends up being a guy that her parents are trying to set her up with, and she is kind of in a rut in her life. She loses her job, and so she decides to apply to this couples baking show, and she applies with the guy who's across the hall, and they get fake engaged. This was not good. I really didn't enjoy really anything about it. I really go into all my pet peeves in the live show we did. He has a foot fetish, which is weird, and it was really weird, and it was really weird. They met, and he didn't know who she was, and he was hitting on her, but he was there to like see if he could marry his boss's daughter, which was her, but he didn't know it was her, so he was busy like flirting with all these girls. There was a weird moment where he thought he gave her lice, and they had to like do things. I don't know. It was weird. It's just like wasn't for me. So I didn't enjoy the romance, and I really had to force myself to finish this one. Then I read some novellas. So I read His Beauty by Jack Harbin. This is a Beauty and the Beast novella, and he is a beast the whole time. It was fun. Her dad is taken captive by the beast because he broke into the beast castle, and so she goes there, says take me instead, so he does, and then they start falling for each other, and it was fun. It was short. It was quick. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. There's not much else to say. He was a beast the whole time, and that was definitely interesting. I will say I kind of forgot he was a beast, but I didn't mind it, so this was fun. It was just a fun, quick Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I can't wait to read more from Jack Harvin. Then I read Beautiful and Dirty by Katrina Jackson. This one is a mafia novella, kind of. Like, he's in the mafia, but it wasn't a huge part of the book. She is on vacation in Italy with her boyfriend, realizes how much she really can't stand her boyfriend, so she ends up going off by herself, goes to this place for pizza, and runs into our hero. He is a lot older than her, but he is like, oh, who is this? And they have like a really steamy time together, and then she leaves. And that's the novella. There is definitely a cliffhanger in here, but I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to read book 2. There is cheating. They're both in relationships, but I honestly didn't mind it. This was just a lot of fun. Really short, but I had a good time with it. Then I read Entreat Me by Grace Draven. This is another Beauty and the Beast retelling, and our heroine is a widow, and she has a sister, and the hero is actually a father, and his son is in love with the heroine's sister, and so something happens with their dad. I think he's in debt, and so the sister is like, let me get my boyfriend, I guess, to help us, and so they go to their castle, and they immediately understand, like, the dad is really badly cursed, and the son's cursed too, but the dad takes really the worst of it, and our heroine and the dad end up having like a lot of chemistry and really liking each other, and then it turns into something more. And the curse is really interesting because both the father and the son are cursed, and like the roses and the thorns like come alive, which was really cool, and it takes a lot to break the curse. So I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a lot of fun, very unique, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I listened to the audiobook of How to Fail at Flirting by Denise Williams. This one was about our heroine who is, I think she's in her 30s, and her friends make her write this like list out. She's really awkward at flirting. She decides to go out of her comfort zone and meets the guy at a bar and tries to flirt with him, and it's really cute. They end up having a really fun night together, and they're both kind of awkward together, and it like really doesn't end well, but like not in a bad way. It's just like an embarrassing way, and they end up really liking each other. But she works at a college as a professor in the education department, and they're making cuts, and they hire a company to decide like who they should cut, who's being most efficient in the department, I guess, and he is part of that program that has come in that department, and so she is like freaking out because there's a conflict of interest. It's forbidden, it's like an office romance, and it's great. She was in a very abusive relationship, so be aware of that coming into this. It really plays into effect at the end with how she is in the relationship and the guy actually comes in, and she has to confront that. But I had a lot of fun with this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I can't wait to read more by Denise Williams. It was just like a really fun, awkward, normal romance, and I really like that. 3 more books. The next book I read is The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle Jensen. This is a fantasy romance. Our heroine has been trained since birth, basically, with all of her sisters to marry the rival kingdom's king and get all their secrets and kill him. And so she ends up being chosen out of all of her sisters to actually marry this king because they're supposed to like form an alliance together, but it's really her father wants her to take him down, and so she ends up marrying him and is trying to figure out all their secrets as a spy without saying she's a spy, and they fall for each other, and it was fabulous. It's so slow burn though. Like, I was getting annoyed to the fact that it was slow burn, so I had to give it 4 out of 5 stars. There was a little bit of miscommunication at the end that I knew as soon as something happened it was going to be miscommunication. And a lot of stuff could have been avoided if she had just communicated with him, but I really enjoyed this. Really fun fantasy romance, really slow burn, hate to love, and it's like she doesn't want to acknowledge that she's liking him. It's fun. 4.5 out of 5 stars. You guys should read this. Then I read my nonfiction for the month, which is Push Out by Monique Morris. This is about how schools treat black girls and how they really push them out of education and how they are in juvenile facilities, and I enjoyed this. It was very informative as a teacher working with black girls, how they're treated, from dress code to the zero tolerance policy. There was a big section about this of teachers in juvenile facilities, which I don't work in and I don't really have a lot of control over, and there was a lot of commentary on like how teachers treat them in those facilities and how credits are treated, which I agree is something that needs to change, but I don't think that was applicable to like my own teaching. I saw my bookmark in there, but I really enjoyed reading this. I'm not going to rate it. It was just a nonfiction I read, so that's what I read. And then the last book I read was Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez. This comes out in April, and I gave this one 3 stars. I don't know how to feel about this. So I did a 24-hour reading vlog, and it's gonna come out after this comes out. This comes out on Tuesday, and my reading vlog is gonna go up on Wednesday because I talk a little spoilery things about this that bothered me. Our heroine thinks she has ALS. Her mother and her sister both have ALS. Her sister died from it. Her mother was on her way to dying from it when she died in a car accident, and so our heroine's other sister, her half-sister, gave up her baby to her. Her sister is a drug addict, and so she is a travel vlogger, our heroine is. She has to put a stop on her traveling to take care of this baby, and the hero is the neighbor next door who is a lawyer, and he comes and helps her, and it's their romance. This is a very, very, very slow burn romance and very emotional because our heroine thinks she's gonna die before she's 30. She's like adamant that she has ALS, and so the romance doesn't develop at all until like over 200 pages into this book, and she's like adamant that he doesn't like her. She's like, no, he doesn't like me, he's never made a move, he doesn't like me, but he's just respecting her wishes that she doesn't want a relationship because she thinks she's gonna die. And they kind of take care of the baby together, but I feel like the baby was just there to get them together, and it was like gone for the rest of the time. Like we didn't really have a lot of scenes with the baby. I feel like the baby didn't even have its own like personality. It was just like there as a plot point, and I didn't like the ending. So yeah, I feel like this also really focused more on her family and her father, who is a hoarder, and he is still devastated over a lot of things that happened about losing his wife, and her sister's a drug addict, and so it was a lot about her dealing with her family and him trying to come to terms with his family. And so this really kind of, to me, felt more women's fiction-y, and then the romance just like was developed near the end, and I don't know, I just didn't love it as much as I wanted to. And that is my wrap up for the second half of March. It was a lot, but I read a lot. I was on spring break this week, so that's why I did end up reading a lot, but that's all I have. Let me know down below what you read this month and what I read that you enjoyed, or what your thoughts are about what I read. I would love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day. Bye.